All right, everyone, welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's July 6th, 2022. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, which just means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your teams while showing them the ropes. So if that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered, so feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/office hours. We host these calls every week. Our call today is recorded. We'll automatically post a recording of our session to our YouTube channel. So if you enjoy that content and want to support it, it helps us out a great deal if you hit those like and subscribe buttons. So with that said, here are the announcements. So the first one was a little VSCode plugin. It was shared by Matt Calhoun. Came across his feeds. Looks like this will help you keep track of what your costs are if you're using more or less vanilla Terraform in your projects. I'm not sure how well it works, together with more advanced scenarios, like if you're using, lots of unsupported resources or TerraGrunt or things like that, but still looks interesting. Infracost is an interesting product. They are getting a lot of partner integrations with a lot of platforms out there. They have their CLI tools, they have their GitHub Actions. Now they have this VSCode plugin, and yet it's an entirely free product. They say they're going to charge for it someday. I'm just wondering when they're going to turn that spigot on and what the outcome will be.
Yeah, so under the hood, excuse me, under the hood, the plugin actually uses the CLI. So. To do its work. So basically, it's as long as it's a resource that's like supported in the major cloud providers that it has. So in the AWS provider, in the Google provider, and in the Azure provider, it will actually give you pretty accurate cost data on it. And it's pretty cool if you end up doing like, loops or whatever, it can tell you how much you're going to spend based on that, as long as it at coding time, at design time, it can actually like figure out what the values of all those things are, so it can figure that out for you.
I'm guessing access to the plan file.
It doesn't even run plan. It actually
no plan file, the file generated by Terraform plan, isn't it based on that?
No, it's literally doing it like dynamically as you create a resource in the.
I'm under the hood. How infracost is working, the CLI, which the VSCode extension uses.
That I don't know. Honestly, I'm not sure how it actually works.
AWS has a pricing API that tells you exactly how much services cost. I linked it in the Zoom chat, so I imagine they're using that. Anton Babenko had a similar plugin or CLI that used the AWS pricing API, as far as I remember.
Yeah, he did that early on. I remember he was working on that. What's also new to me, though, is that's infracost cloud. Now they have some more information. Previously they just mentioned that there would be an offering at some point. Now they're describing a little bit more what that might entail, and that you can sign up for it. Has anybody looked into this some more? Is anybody on the infracost cloud beta? No? All right. The other one was a tool by Bridgecrew. Bridgecrew has been coming out with a lot of little neat utilities. I don't think this is the first one we brought it up, but I thought since it was a share in office hours again, we could bring it up again. So AirIAM is a CLI tool, I believe it's in Python. It's designed to make it easier for you to develop fine-grained IAM policies on AWS. It integrates with the AWS IAM Access Analyzer APIs and will spit out a policy, an AWS IAM policy in Terraform code for you. It does look like it is a little bit involved to actually set it up and use it. but anybody who's tried doing fine-grained IAM policies before by hand would say that's also not that trivial. So not sure. I haven't tried it out. Anyone kick the tires on Air IAM? Yeah, so that's an interesting one. The other one that came across my reader was this. It's a vulnerability database specializing in just cloud provider vulnerabilities. So aggregating those across the major clouds there, Azure and AWS being some that were notable ones here. Not sure how comprehensive it is or not.
Can I just add something to the number 2 there? No, sorry, not this one. Back the IAM one.
Yep.
There's, I forget exactly what it's called, but somewhere in IAM now there's actually a thing you can turn on, and it will like watch all of the IAM activity that's used in your account over a period of time, and then give you like a list of policies that you can put into place to do just those things, and you can review them. But that's an AWS like native tool, so it gives you like it spits out just like an IAM policy. Oh, did Vlad just link it for me there? Is that
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. That's it. The access analyzer,
policy generation. Nice.
Yeah. I couldn't remember what the thing was called, but basically it just watches your CloudTrail for some period of time and then gives a policy that that reflects everything that happened in CloudTrail over that period of time, and then you can you can actually use that to create a more fine-grained policy, and then obviously review that to make sure only the things that you expected were actually in there as well.
So hey there, I'm Julian, kind of new to this group, but is this something that Air IAM is leaning on too?
Well, it was leaning on the underlying API for IAM Access Analyzer, but I don't believe it's leaning on the policy generation functionality.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they maybe they complement each other.
I was the delay in my response was because I was Googling for what that thing was called and I couldn't find it. I was like, what's this thing called? So I'm glad Vlad actually found it.
I thought I saw it. I could have sworn I saw it. Oh, Access Advisor APIs. I read this as IAM
Access Analyzer.
Access Analyzer. I don't know if that's the same thing. And this is just a.
It's not.
Yeah.
That one is that is the thing where you go in and you can say, like, I want this service and this thing, and it gives you the static, like what the policy should be. Where this Access Analyzer one actually actively looks at stuff.
All right, roll that back. I said the wrong thing in the very beginning, that this thing was based on those IAM Access Analyzer APIs, because that's how I thought it worked, and therefore I thought it was similar. So totally different implementation. Julian, do we get your question answered?
Yeah, I just find that super interesting. I wonder what the difference in the policies they generate would be. Seems like different approaches.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see which one ends up being better. All in all, I think it's common with code generation of this sort is that it gets you there faster, but it's probably not fully turnkey the result with what you want to run with. Vlad, do you know from any experience or chatter how well those work?
How well? No, I haven't tried them. I don't know. It's really not my area. Security is my area, but I haven't tried them that much. And yeah, I don't know. I imagine they work well.
Yeah, I think it's easier when you have a requirement across your desk that says, hey, we got to get fine-grained access controls for this service we're deploying. How do we do it? That's more when you probably want to try something out.
There was a case I used the Amazon solution where I couldn't figure out what the permission was that I needed to do something. So I just gave my user that I was using at the time full admin access, and then turned that on to see everything that it actually accessed. And then I found this like obscure permission that I couldn't find somewhere else. And I was like, aha, that's what it was that I was missing. And then I put it back and put that policy on. So it was helpful for that kind of thing.
Pro tip, GitHub also has a search, and you can search for policies that people have already written.
True.
It's very, very efficient. Like last time I had to do this for Atlantis, actually, I think. I deployed Atlantis. Atlantis was managing itself, and I really didn't want to give it like admin permissions.
Yeah.
And that was a whole struggle until I believe I found the policy somewhere.
You're talking though about just the generic GitHub code search, not a special type of search for policies. Just clarifying. Okay.
GitHub code search, either their old one or
really
the
good.
preview one or source graph. They all work kind of the same.
But I think that is a good nuance you bring out there. I would be surprised if this works any different than the scenario you described, where you probably need to start off with an admin that can do everything, observe it, and then record it, and then reduce it.
Yeah. Yeah. In my case, it was some weird KMS like privilege that I needed to do something that I was doing with a KMS key, and I didn't even know what to search for, like in the like in GitHub or anywhere else for like existing policies. It was more like I didn't know what I didn't know at that point, and then it showed me that there was something that it was using that I needed. So I was like, that makes sense.
They do talk about alternatives here. As well. All right, we'll share that link in Slack, so if you want to check that out. Looks like someone else added this here. AWS EKS Anywhere now supports bare metal. Is this bare metal on-prem then?
Yep. Previously, you could do Amazon EKS Anywhere only with VMware. Now you can do it on bare metal servers too.
That's cool. Has anybody been using EKS Anywhere? Just before we move on to. Okay, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, I was going to ask. Hi, this is Amir from Ryzen. I have the same kind of question. I ran across some posts that people are using EKS Anywhere successfully for local clusters as a substitute for Minikube or something like that. And I was really curious to see what the use case for that is, and how does that, like, does anyone else on the call do something similar with EKS Anywhere for the for the developer enablement and productivity?
I didn't know that you could do that with EKS Anywhere. Supports Docker, huh? So you can have a mock EKS cluster locally under your Docker engine, like Minikube?
EKS Anywhere
I
is
really didn't
basic.
go under the hood.
Yeah, that's what you can do, Eric. But EKS Anywhere is basically a distribution of EKS with AWS managed, tested, and validated components. So with AWS's version of, I know, Kubelet that has some specific improvements and patches that they do and things like that. So it's not something that exotic. It's similar to Minikube, but again, using AWS's thing. I haven't used it. I like ECS Anywhere more, to put it mildly.
Right. Well, I mean, to me, it stands out though that every cloud provider has its own esoteric differences, and when you're using Minikube, it is a big stretch between that and an AWS service, and it would be interesting to see if this reduces then the difference between running EKS locally versus.
I highly doubt it, especially because the problem is not coming from EKS itself, it's, oh, I need to test an integration with the application load balancer, and oh, S3, oh,
Yeah.
EBS, oh, other things. Like,
Yeah.
I don't do any local Kubernetes clusters because that just doesn't work, in my view. There are very few use cases for which that is actually an enjoyable developer experience.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, the only thing that I will say that it does over like Minikube or any of those things is it actually installs the custom EKS CRDs. So anything that, like all those little extensions that they actually install, and they are available in your local kube cluster at that point. So
Like, could you use, I guess this is a weird question. I almost don't want, I mean, I doubt that you could still run though, for example, the Amazon load balancer controller, because, well, maybe if you have local stack deployed or something, but
yeah,
sounds,
I don't know.
Yeah. But to Vlad's point, honestly, I think going down this rabbit hole is not worth the pursuit. I'm just curious intellectually if it's possible. All right. Anything else to add to that? All right. AWS SAM Accelerate is now GA. That's Amazon's serverless framework, right? Yep.
Yep.
Cool. So I didn't realize it wasn't GA yet. So
SAM,
it's just in a preview.
no, SAM was
SAM Accelerate.
This
Okay.
is SAM Accelerate. Yeah. So basically it gives you like hot swapping of code into the cloud to do testing, like as you're developing it. It's something that serverless stack and then the serverless framework 3 we're trying to do, like where you're developing locally, but you're actually running it like in like lambdas and stuff. When you execute it and you get the results locally. And I think that they're trying to keep like feature parity with that, with some of those other frameworks so that you can do that. So it basically means like you hit save in your IDE and then under the hood, like the Lambda actually gets updated like in the cloud, and then you could actually run the Lambda and get results like locally. So it's kind of not having to worry about how you emulate the Lambda environment locally. I think that's kind of the problem itself.
Makes sense.
And it's also a really nice developer experience, like, what was it, SAM Accelerate Watch, and it's running your Lambda, it's giving you the logs from the Lambda invocation in your terminal locally, so you don't have to search for them in CloudWatch. It's a really, really nice thing. I love it.
Yeah. That's what I meant by like seeing the results locally, like all those things that you just said there. Yep, exactly. And it runs on like a real API gateway and all of that kind of stuff. So if you get real results, not some mocked result that you find out works locally, but then when you deploy it doesn't work, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Although it does mean that you have to be connected and authenticated and all those kinds of things. So it makes it harder
assumption in today's development environment.
Yeah, although I could say I just spent 3 weeks in several places where internet was really spotty, but I could do fully local development on stuff. And when I got to a real good connectivity place, I could actually upload and do that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it seems more and more we're going that way.
Yeah, trade-off.
Does anybody use SAM? While we're on the topic, I'm interested. I had a client bring it up as their means of managing. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a fair amount of work with it in the past. I'm not actively using it right now, but I did a pretty large project where I used it.
Would you use it again over serverless, for example?
It depends. I mean, honestly, any of these things right now, it's either serverless. If I had to pick and I wasn't tied to anything else, I would either say Pulumi or the serverless framework would be the way I would go about doing this, because like coding everything in in the same language stack seems much easier, but under the hood, it still gets transpiled to CloudFormation, and then it gets launched as a CloudFormation template, which has all of its own, pros and cons.
And how much did you run into those CloudFormation template bits? That's the thing. I was kind of recommending a client away from it just because, hey, you're fully all in on Terraform already. Why would you pick up this framework that under the hood is going to be CloudFormation for you?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I didn't run into it until I needed to integrate with stuff that SAM couldn't do itself. And then all of a sudden it was a hodgepodge of like how to connect the two of them. It didn't work all that great.
Yeah, that's what I would expect. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But I'll also give that same caveat for like the serverless framework or any of these other things where if you're managing infrastructure resources with two different frameworks, you're always going to have that dilemma at some
Friction.
point when the two of them need to talk to each other.
Yeah. Vlad, what was your experience?
I don't like serverless framework anymore. I think they made a large mistake with how they handle plugins, and a lot of vital plugins for the serverless framework are unmaintained messes. And even if they are maintained, you pretty much reach the same problem, which is you're writing CloudFormation, but not actual CloudFormation, or you're writing CloudFormation in serverless framework, which is an extra layer of overcomplicating things. I'm only speaking here about like real production use cases, not I want to deploy a Hello World Lambda as fast as possible. Like, serverless framework is still awesome for that. But it very quickly leads to writing CloudFormation, but with 50 different layers of abstraction on top of it. And it's still CloudFormation. The most obvious example is if you're trying to do anything with AppSync. It's just horrible. SAM is not perfect either, but I like it, and it's improved a lot in the last year or so. So I urge you to take a second view. I also, compared with Terraform, I also like SAM's developer experience a bit more. Deploys feel a bit more natural, and SAM also does packaging and stuff that for Terraform you have to do with Docker and stuff, and it's a bit messy. Like Anton abstracted it all away in the what's its name, Terraform AWS Lambda module.
Serverless.tf.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The serverless.tf thing is, and it's awesome, but it's still more complex than SAM is. But if you're into Terraform, yeah, it's a trade-off. There is no perfect thing, but I am not considering serverless framework anymore for any use cases because the plugin problem is big, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
Gotcha.
I don't
Thanks
disagree
for
with
weighing in,
anything
guys.
that you said. So.
I feel like that. Can I call out that? Should you use SAM? That should be a Cloud Posse YouTube video. Cut that piece just so I can share that with a client, if y'all don't mind.
Take that to heart, Andy. Yeah, we've slowed down on some of those, but we have a big backlog to get back to. But this video will definitely be posted, and you can link to the section on it.
Good point. Yeah, I can just link to the section.
Yeah. All right, so there's one last announcement here. Looks like GitHub has introduced achievements, which is interesting.
Yeah, I thought
someone want to fill me in on this one?
I just saw Matt Gowey posted on LinkedIn, and I thought it was a cool little feature.
Yeah, so they've had achievements for a while, but they've been kind of lame. Like there's been two that like basically everyone has. Like if you did any open source code in the past like 5 years, then you got part of their like archive program. But now they added the Pool Shark one, which is cool. I don't know. There's a few that they added that are pretty cool.
And is it retroactive or just moving forward?
It's retroactive. So they'll look at your GitHub contribution history and they'll make decisions on if you got an achievement from that.
Oh, cool.
So that one that they were highlighting in that GIF was like, hey, did you contribute code that was used on the Mars rover, which is really sweet. I wish I had that one. You definitely have the 4 times pull shark, Eric. That's the new one. And it means you've merged 1024 pull requests over your lifetime on GitHub.
Nice.
Is there a master list of where these are listed? Like, so you can get an idea of what you have to do?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
far.
How do you achieve them?
It's apparently a
Yeah, how do we get
secret.
more?
You don't know until you achieve it. It's in the article.
Yeah, my GitHub randomly had a badge on it that said like professional or something, or pro or something, like that. I have no idea where it came from either. I was like, what the heck is this? And I'm like, how did it get there?
I think that just means that you spend for the
Yeah,
you pay GitHub as an individual.
It
Yeah.
isn't. No,
Hey,
no.
no?
It's a different
No?
thing. No, it's a different thing that was
Huh.
on there. Yeah,
Okay.
it was something else. I would be bragging about that. I pay money to GitHub. Thanks for the badge.
All right. Yeah, that was interesting. Thanks for highlighting that one. Let's get into the Q&A. The first one was Michael Williams.
Actually, or can I just announce one more quick thing before we get on to that?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
saw that that AWS announced a more streamlined way to open support tickets, and they said that they've reduced it down to like three steps that they guide you through instead of the nonsense that you used to have to go through to get a support ticket opened. So I'm looking forward to trying that. I haven't actually tried the new version.
I saw that announcement as well. I didn't get excited because you still have to jump in. You still have to decide on the account, jump into that account, and then open the support ticket in that account. I was just hoping like you could just open a support ticket and have a drop-down list, which account or other, right?
But yeah, organizational level support tickets would be fantastic.
Yeah, that really would be nice. That'd be huge. And it sucks that you have to pay them for each account to have support too, but you know, they're gonna charge what they can charge.
Oh, and or you get the you get the support engineer that said like you opened it in this account, but it's related to this account, so I can't, and I don't have access to it because of that.
That's
so
brutal.
You have to do this, and I'm like, So
yeah, everybody's jumped through that hoop if you're doing any support stuff. Yeah, it's awful.
So the fact that they're trying to improve the support experience is a good sign to me. That's all I was gonna say.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
One more.
They're attacking it from the
Eric.
wrong direction, but
Yeah, go ahead, Vlad.
I DM'd you the Fargate thing. AWS pre-announced. If not everybody
dude, I'm so
is
sorry.
watching,
You even DM'd me that the other night. Oh, sorry.
don't worry about it. Our secret DMs are gonna be visible on the screen now. So for people that aren't aggressively reading 500 emails a day from GitHub, AWS commented on an issue on the containers roadmap that larger Fargate sizes are gonna be a thing soon. I imagine some of you will be happy about this.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, you have to revert to just running ECS instances to get the size containers.
I'm really curious if this is going to be released just for ECS or if it's going to be ECS and EKS, because there are major differences between Fargate for ECS on Fargate and EKS on Fargate.
Yeah.
yeah, EKS on Fargate is no good in my opinion. But not because of instance sizes, I guess.
Yeah, well, so but the thing that I'm starting to like as a pattern is using Fargate profile for your controllers, and then using Carpenter for your instances. So you kind of get the best of both. So you could run Carpenter on Fargate, and then your instances are scaled up as you need it. Then you have the full versatility of the entire AWS instance marketplace.
So I went the other way and implemented where controllers and like, third-party stuff was all running on instances, and then applications are running on Fargate. And I think in both ways, you get hit by this problem where Fargate, you can't run sidecars. So you then can't collect logs. So you have to go this specific pattern of doing Fargate logging, which when you want like one log collection solution without having to deal with multiple configuration options, kind of sucks. And in general, not being able to run a sidecar stinks. So I like what you're saying in terms of running controllers via Fargate, because those logs are sometimes less important, but sometimes they're more important too. But that's what I think about when I think about Fargate.
It's a smaller subset.
EKS is that logging. Yeah.
They're doing logging with FluentBit, but yeah, you cannot run.
So they are, but it is like proprietary. Basically, it's like their own configuration and setup that you have to go through to enable that FluentBit configure. Like they did it the right way, but I really just wish that they would figure out a way to do sidecars on Fargate.
There's an issue for sidecars. I don't know if it's being developed or not. Let me search for it.
I remember there being an issue too. I don't know if they were moving forward with that.
So how do you use Datadog then on Fargate?
You have to run that's a good question. I think you run it as another
You do a manual
it wasn't
sidecar,
sidecars.
which
You
is
can
basic.
run sidecars. There's no daemon sets. I'm getting
Okay.
I was just looking that up to make sure my own knowledge wasn't like messed up. I'm like,
Sorry.
I'm pretty sure I ran sidecars on Fargate.
You cannot run Istio sidecars. That's the problem. Because I remember something about sidecars too. You cannot run Istio.
But you could run app mesh. Why would you need it?
Oh God. I did a bake off with app mesh versus all the other ones, and app mesh was just so lacking.
Well, oh, that's an interesting. Yeah, you brought it up. I'd like to learn more. Did you create a post on it? Was it a private thing?
It was a private thing. Yeah, it was like
Okay.
deep in the bowels of some research and development for a client, but it just was, I don't know. The result was I was really excited about Linkerd, and not excited about Istio was like at the far end of like complexity and can do whatever you want. App mesh was proprietary and pretty limited. And then like Linkerd, and I think there was another one that was in the middle there that I was like, oh, this fits all the things I want to do and seems like not a huge pain. But yeah, if I'm remembering that correctly, but yeah.
All right. Thanks for that. So now, Michael, are you still there? I thought we could get to your question on Atlantis.
Yeah,
you were
I'm here.
asking- Cool. You're talking about the like runatlantis.io for Terraform.
I'm not very familiar with the product itself, right? Yeah, this is it.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah. So Atlantis, the history behind it, they kind of introduced the whole concept of how many companies approach GitOps or with Terraform today. It is the original project that was open source, and then the maintainer ultimately ended up getting kind of acqui-hired, you could say, by HashiCorp. Now, I don't believe HashiCorp has any rights to Atlantis. Anybody know about that? Because it's not my understanding. But the project was on hiatus for like 2-3 years, got almost no pull request merged because there was some ambiguity about what he could or could not do while working at HashiCorp. That has all changed now. Atlantis has received a lot of love, a lot of attention, lots of activity every single week. They're cutting releases on a regular basis now. We have some members in the community. Pepe, most notably, is one of the maintainers and helps cut some of those releases as well. So Atlantis is the first Terraform taco provider, you could say. This Terraform automation and collaboration software It is one of the few that's open source and very easy to get up and running. It's a single process that you can deploy either to an instance or under ECS or to Kubernetes. You give that instance the permissions you want Atlantis to have. So pretty much it needs to be an admin in every account you want to manage infrastructure in. And then it just responds to webhooks. So it's a very simple CD service, a continuous delivery service for Terraform that will automatically, well, you could say it does a little, basic CI, but automatically when a pull request is open, you can tell it to run a plan. It posts the output of that plan on the PR as a comment, which makes it really easy for anyone to review the impact of a pull request. And then you use chat ops. So you run commands in the comments to apply those changes. So they kind of show that in the workflow here. You create this resource and open the pull request, and then you see here's a summary of what happens. I think these screenshots are a little bit out of date because you can expand it and actually see like a larger output. Then you run Atlantis apply and it applies it. So that all seems great, and it blew our mind away in the beginning, and we were big proponents of using it for a couple of years. And then the same thing happens that happens with all tools, is like you outgrow it and you try and do more and more and more things. So I think the problem with Atlantis is when you use the comment approach on pull requests, it gets incredibly noisy. And anybody who subscribed to that repository is now going to get a notification of that, whether or not they care about it. So if you have a mono repo for your infrastructure, which is not an uncommon pattern, and you have lots of projects in there, anytime anybody's doing any Terraform on there, I'm going to get spammed with these comments. And it gets a little bit hard to go through all that comment history to just suss out what is the meat here of what we're trying to discuss. So I think it would be nice if it maybe tied into some other like deployment API or something else within GitHub. But Atlantis is designed to be a CI or a VCS agnostic tool, so it works with Bitbucket, GitHub, GitLab, and so forth.
Yeah, I watched a bit of the video, but I'm like, is this a good choice or not? Having.
I think it's a great. I think it's trained. I think it depends on. Oh, okay, so first of all, I'm going to disclose I'm biased. We've been working with another provider for some time out there, and having used that now long enough, I couldn't imagine going back. I think that if you don't have this, and you don't have one of the other taco providers, and you're just trying to use vanilla like GitHub Actions or vanilla Jenkins or vanilla GitLab CI, then I think that this is a better option probably. It will whet your appetite for what you can do and how it can work, and it is a very effective pattern for collaboration for teams. And the problems we had might not be problems you even have. So why like over optimize for this situation?
So what would be do you have a competing products in this space?
Yeah, so there's a video that we did
Excellent.
Now it's a little bit older. It's over a year old, but Terraform Tacos provider, Tacos, Cloud Posse, YouTube. This is the video here. I'll share it in the Zoom chat or in the office hours chat to be expedient. And we gave every competitor about 10 minutes to present. Now that was a pretty big, that was lightning talks. You couldn't get to the meat of everything. And I think they all came out with different strengths and weaknesses. So the competitors are Terraform Cloud by HashiCorp. It's hard to argue that they don't have a good product. It's by the makers of Terraform itself and how they envisioned a continuous delivery product or collaboration product for Terraform to work and look like. Just in the past couple of weeks, they've also added some functionality around drift detection. They have special things that they've done and integrated with the Terraform CLI itself to improve the developer experience, but it's expensive. So consider that. And the pricing is The price, I think they're more upfront with the pricing. I don't know what the current one is. I think it's based on workspaces or success. No, it's successful applies per month, at least it used to be. But not everyone knows that number. Or you might have a tremendously busy organization, but just because we're doing 10,000 applies a month doesn't mean we are enterprise. It just means that you have a lot of infrastructure there that we're managing in small states. So it got hard for us to estimate the cost, and we weren't able to really promote it to customers that easily. You have scalar.com, which is one of the original Taco alternatives to Terraform Cloud. That's SCALR, scalar.com. And then you got n0.com. N0, their emphasis is really on ephemeral environments. That's one of their main differentiators. They've built things in to make it very easy to have Terraform environments automatically destruct after a certain amount of time. Now, you could do that with any provider. It's just that they made that a first-class feature and kind of integrated that into the product. They also have an API. Scalar also has an API. There's a Terraform provider for them both. And then you got spacelift.io. And spacelift.io is the one that we are using predominantly at Cloud Posse. We chose it for a lot of reasons. One is they had the most mature Terraform provider at the time. I think N0 and Scalar might be catching up, but at the time they were the most mature, and that was a requirement for us as an infrastructure as code company. We could not push a product that we could not deploy with infrastructure as code. So that was one of the first reasons why we promoted them. But it's really matured as a product. It works really well with extremely large environments, over thousands of environments deployed. Is something we've done regularly on Spacelift, and it has built-in drift detection, which is another reason we like it. Now, here's the problem with Atlantis, and we have a write-up on this. Why we like or why we recommend Spacelift, this one here. And we highlight some of the differentiators, so things to be aware of that you might want to have in whatever solution you pick. Even if you build it in-house, even if you use Atlantis, be aware of what you're giving up or what you have to implement. So how are you going to do drift detection? How are you going to determine that just what we have in version control is actually the current desired state in your cloud provider? Even after you run a Terraform apply, even if you haven't changed a line of code, your desired state might have drifted if you depend on any data source, if there's any bug in the Terraform providers, or if somebody has gone in and done, cowboy coding or clicking around in ClickOps in the UI. Reconciliation. So how do you know? So once you have that drift detected, how do you reconcile it? How do you bring it back to the desired state? With Atlantis, there's no really good way of doing that. You have to open up another PR because every change has to be done through a PR. But what if there is no change that has to be made? You just literally need to reapply it. Then you need to open up a no-op PR, just modify README or something and run it and then see that it goes there. So an approval workflow, policies, like Atlantis has OPA, Open Policy Agent support, but it's not cross-project. It's only within that one project you're working on. What if you want a policy that when this project changes, this other project needs to be updated? That's also a policy. That you can't do in Atlantis, but you can do in some of these other solutions. So yeah, this is our write-up on that. I'll share it also in the chat here. Do you have any other questions on that or anyone else?
No, I think that's about it. I'll try to track down the chat. You're saying it's the Slack chat, right?
Yeah, in the office hours channel of
Okay.
sweetops. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And I also have a long list of comparisons here with Atlantis, kind of like with Atlantis, there's no regular reconciliation, no drift detection, no way to manage dependencies. There's no way to do OPA policies that trigger runs. The OPA support in Atlantis is just policy driven on that. Some Terraform code doesn't do what you didn't want it to do, but sometimes you want more policies.
Okay,
and so forth.
excellent.
All right. Let's see, next up, or let's see in the chat here. It's catching up. All right, so then the next one.
There is
Well,
a announcement Vlad posted for IAM Roles Anywhere.
Oh, okay, what's that? Sounds interesting.
It just got announced. It was it was leaked in the JavaScript SDK yesterday, but now it's finally out.
You basically can use your private CA to use IAM roles outside of AWS. So you don't need to have permanent credentials. You can use a certificate to authenticate in exchange for temporary credentials from outside AWS. That's the TLDR.
That one needs to sink in a little bit. It seems really interesting, but I'm like, I'm confused because, like, for example, one of the things we've been doing today is like we use a KMS key to encrypt things in SOPs, and that encryption happens locally, and we could do that today without this. So I'm just trying to figure out that is not what this is doing. This is doing something different.
This is like, imagine you have a server farm in your own private data center.
Yeah.
You can issue certificates to all of your servers in the server farms, and then they can actually call AWS APIs as if they were like authenticated with an IAM instance role, because they have they have a certificate that they can exchange for that.
To make it
that's
easier,
cool.
this is kind of like what they were doing for IoT, for Greengrass, and for ECS Anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very cool. I see the value of that. Okay. Thanks for
And there's other potential uses for this. If you take it through a bunch of times, I think there's some CICD uses for this, like in our world, if we thought about it correctly. I mean, obviously, GitHub, and running on AWS are one thing, but if you're running outside of that, like there's ways that you could probably use this to get into your org.
Now, could you deploy, do they ship this with a IAM metadata service, so to say, so you can, emulate the AWS functionality anywhere you want?
No, this is just like an IAM role, basically. So this is, instead of having to have an access key and secret access key like deployed out to servers that are outside of AWS, so that they can access AWS things. It's trying to control it with a public key infrastructure instead of a bunch of like key pairs that can be compromised and used for nefarious things over time. This is like a better way to authenticate to AWS.
Okay. And let's go into one thing that Vlad, you brought up, I think, or that it has dropped in 1.3 alpha of Terraform, a much requested feature of optional parameters with objects. So that's going to make our life a lot easier as soon as 1.3 drops officially. I'm guessing then 1.3 might be a couple months out at the most.
Yeah. Assuming they don't pull it again.
Well, what they pulled was an experimental feature, right? And this is now not experimental. I believe this is being released as a first class.
Yeah, it doesn't. You don't need to opt into it. It's in the mainline code base. I saw it, but you never know.
Oh, this release concludes the module variable optional attributes experiment. Final design of optional attributes, which was similar to the experimental form in the previous release, but two major differences. The optional function like modifier for declaring an optional attribute now accepts an optional second argument for specifying the default value. And that's nice. If it's not specified, it's null. Okay. Thank you for that, HashiCorp. Any other questions, announcements that we missed? All right.
Just that you'll be joining us from Sweden in a few weeks, right?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so come later on this month in July, I'll be doing these from Stockholm, Sweden. So yeah, if you are in Stockholm, do reach out to me. It'd be really fun to meet up with other people in the community and grab a beer. So, well, with that said, I guess we'll wrap things up a little bit early. Give you back some time in your day. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, head over to youtube.com/cloudposse. Again, that's youtube.com/cloudposse and subscribe. If you're interested in working with Cloud Posse, it's very easy. Just head over to cloudposse.com/quiz. Take a few scoping questions just so we can understand if we're a good fit for what you're looking for. And we'll jump on a call and understand your problem. So go to cloudposse.com/quiz if you're interested to work with Cloud Posse. I love to connect with everyone in our community. Go to linkedin.com/in/Osterman to connect with me and subscribe to our newsletter by going to newsletter.cloudposse.com. We send out a weekly newsletter with all the links and cool things that we come across in our industry. So if you happen to miss office hours, at least you won't miss some of the goodness that we share. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you next week, same time, same place.